What's up, guys? I'm Caden with Crypto Now or Never, and welcome back to another update on Mr. Miggles. If you enjoy this style of content, please do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. As always, none of this is financial advice. Let's get into it.
I have a dream, that's all I need. I'll make it happen with some work and belief. Know what I want.
Okay, so if we just start out by taking a look at Mr. Miggles from a technical analysis standpoint, honestly, not a whole lot has changed since my last Miggles video. At the moment, the reality is that Miggles is still just in major consolidation right now. You can see that through the end of June and early July, Mr. Miggles had a nice breakout. Then it had a decent little pullback and it started to break out again. You could argue that it put in a double top. And then since early August, Mr. Miggles has really just been bleeding. However, I want to point out that it's not just Mr. Miggles that's been bleeding. If you come over here to CoinMarketCap, you can see that a lot of other projects are the same way, especially if you look at meme coins. Just looking at Pepe as an example, it's actually up 15.8% in the last week. However, it's still under a $5 billion market cap. Now, what you will notice, though, is that Dogecoin is actually up almost 30% in the last week. And it was up over this, however, it's down 6.3% in the last day. But a big reason that Doge has been pumping is because of the Doge ETF news. And to be clear on that front, I think a Doge ETF is extremely bullish for meme coins. Obviously, no, it's not specifically related to Mr. Miggles. However, the reality is that it just legitimizes meme coins even more in the eyes of the public. A lot of people out there still doubt meme coins and they doubt meme coins long term, but an ETF says that meme coins could absolutely be here to stay. So from a long-term standpoint, I think that's very bullish. Now, if we do come over here and we look at Base Memecoin specifically, you'll see that Mr. Miggles actually still has excellent volume. And I always like to look at volume because that's what exchanges are going to look at. Exchanges always want to see what projects have good volume. That can often be one of the biggest factors as to whether or not they're going to list a project. Because you have to understand exchanges make a lot of money with fees. So the more volume, the more fees they get. But again, Mr. Miggles' volume is currently just under 2 million. It's 1.98 million. If you look at Doginme, it's 1.1 million. You look at Keycat, it's 1.5 million. And both of these projects have a larger market cap and they're listed on Coinbase. I know I point that out in pretty much every video, but I think it's very important because the reality is that a lot of people out there are still hoping that Mr. Miggles gets a Coinbase listing. And I'm definitely not saying that they won't get one. In fact, I still do believe that Mr. Miggles will get a Coinbase listing. Personally, I just don't think it makes much sense for Coinbase to not list Miggles. I think it would significantly benefit their own chain. Not to mention, Coinbase has posted Miggles multiple times in the past. You have to remember that. In my eyes, the fact that Coinbase posted Mr. Miggles on National Cat Day is very bullish. They didn't post Toshi, they didn't post Keycat, they posted Miggles. I just would personally be shocked if Mr. Miggles is not in the future plans of Coinbase. Again, that's only my personal speculation though. You guys have to speculate on your own. Now, speaking of Miggles' X account though, I do recommend coming and listening to some of these spaces that they've done. There's been some good news in here. They spoke on the Starter Lab space and then they also did another space recently. They did their own space right here on September 10th. So if you guys are interested in getting some good information, then I recommend listening to these. You can listen to the recording right here. Now, the other thing that I think is very important for you guys to understand is that we are getting very close to the next FOMC meeting. The next FOMC meeting is on September 17th, and it's currently September 14th, 3 days away. And I want you guys to understand that right now they are predicting rate cuts. Now, as I always say, you have to be prepared for buy the rumor, sell the news. That is very common in crypto. So do not just expect if we get rate cuts for the market to explode from there. I'm not saying that it can't happen or that it won't happen, but you have to be prepared in case that it doesn't. However, if we do get rate cuts, then I think that'll be very bullish from a long-term standpoint. Because historically speaking, rate cuts have always been bullish for risk on assets. And obviously crypto is a risk on asset, especially meme coins. So make sure you understand that in 3 days we have the next FOMC meeting. If we look at something like Ethereum, you can see that Ethereum did start to have a nice breakout on the daily time frame. And I was talking about that in one of my previous videos. We had a nice, very strong bullish engulfing candle and we closed above the 21-day moving average. However, we were heading into a weekend and weekends are usually low volume. And honestly, that's exactly what we're seeing right now, 2 small red candles. So it'll be interesting to see how this actually plays out. If we can come down here and potentially get a bounce off the 21-day, then that'll be a support and resistance flip. What's a little bit more interesting right now is Ethereum on the weekly time frame. So this candle actually closes today, but this would be a bullish engulfing candle for ETH. And the reality of Ethereum is that it's pretty much been pumping nonstop since April. Yes, we did have this little consolidation period, but since April, it's pretty much just been a moonshot. And you can see that the RSI and stochastics were getting very overbought. Now, over the last couple weeks, the stochastics have started to reset. However, it's just going to put them right back into the pinned region if this does turn out to be a breakout. So we will have to keep our eyes on the situation. Regardless of what happens though, I would love to see Ethereum hold this 4,100 to 3,800 range. This is the range that I've been talking about for a long time. If we can hold above this, then that would be a textbook support and resistance flip. And the reason it's a very important range is because it's been the cycle high. We had 2 rejections off of the 4,100 range and then 2 rejections off of the 3,800 range. So we want to hold that as support. And you obviously have to keep in mind that the better that Ethereum does, the better that a project like Mr. Miggles is going to do. That's just the reality of the situation. Obviously, I know a lot of people were expecting Mr. Miggles to explode with Ethereum, but that's not how profit rotation works. You want to see Ethereum exploding, but then you need to see profits start to get rotated. And right now, profits haven't started to rotate. But it makes sense as to why they haven't rotated yet, because as I was just saying, Ethereum's been breaking out since April. If you were a whale, why would you rotate out of this chart right now? There's just no need whenever you're having strong breakout after strong breakout after strong breakout. So we'll have to see what happens after profits start to rotate. But personally, Mr. Miggles is absolutely still one of my favorite plays. Definitely in regards to base plays. To be clear, it is my favorite base chain play. But as always, if you guys are interested in Miggles or just getting into projects super early in general, then I recommend taking a look at my Discord. We've been printing in here this entire cycle, and we are finally starting to see the market turn around again, especially if we end up getting rate cuts. But some of these projects, you could have turned $1,000 into over $200,000, and I strongly believe we're just getting started. So if this is the kind of community that you'd like to be a part of, you can find the link right here on my YouTube homepage. It'd be a blessing to have you in here with us. But that's about all. Let me know down in the comments how you guys are feeling about Mr. Miggles. If you found this content valuable, please do me a favor and hit that like and subscribe button. Thank you guys for watching. Have a great rest of your day.